Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sales Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Daniel McComber, and with me today is Jimmy Rex. Jimmy is my mentor, friend. You have a lot of titles.
I've had worse ones than those two, so I'll take it.
I mean, real estate agent, kind of on steroids, mentor, coach, men's group leader. Back in the day, you were meat salesman. Which one is your favorite?
I don't know. I don't really have a favorite. I don't know. It's funny when I was doing real estate, I think it's important to brand yourself with how you want people to see you though. So back when I was doing the real estate, I just referred to myself as real estate expert all the time. It was kind of funny. If you actually Googled Jimmy Rex houseboat or Jimmy Rex Donovan Mitchell, long story short, I sunk a houseboat once and I threw this big party for Donovan Mitchell while he was playing into the Jazz, and the news wanted to cover the stories. And it's one of my favorite marketing things I've ever done. But they basically said, we want to do this big story. And I said, only if you refer to me every time in the article as real estate expert Jimmy Rex. And so if you literally pull it up, it's like real estate expert Jimmy Rex sunk his houseboat, and real estate expert Jimmy Rex had no problem with Donovan Mitchell crashing his barbecues. Hilarious. Wow. But it's important. I mean, Trump was the best we've ever seen at it. That guy branded himself. I mean, if you ever watched the debates, was so funny. He would just destroy his opponents by branding them. Yeah. And so if you don't brand yourself, other people are going to brand you what they want to.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it does matter.
No, absolutely. And so, I mean, right now, what's like your main title that you like to go by? You're not real estate expert anymore.
I men's coach or community builder are kind of the two things I like to say.
Community builder. I love that, because you definitely have had a huge impact on, I guess, the men's coaching group and in that space. So it's funny, me and you met back in 2021, right? And actually I have something. So I pulled up the text message. You can see that right there. I was, when you announced that you're doing We Are the They, I just shot you a text. And by the way, that logo looks like different.
That was the original logo. It was too like Oriental looking. It looked like a samurai thing. And
yeah.
So
we
fixed it a little. That's the
I was just, I remember I texted you. I'm like, dude, this looks amazing. So awesome. And you said, thanks, man. I'm so excited for it. It's what I'm called to do, truly. And I thought that was so cool. And originally I was going to join that first men's group, but that's when I was moving to Texas. And I was and you didn't really know what the men's group was going to be at that time. You had a general idea. And so me and you talked a little bit, and I said, oh man, I'll probably just have to get the next one. I'm moving to Texas. And then eventually, of course, I joined Leadership Group 4. Yeah. And it's what's ultimately led to me doing this podcast and everything.
That's cool. It kind of feels like you're supposed to be part of Group 4 too. It's just things always work at the timing they're supposed to,
Yeah. Well, I look at the guys in the other groups, and then I look at the guys in the group with 4. And I mean, me and a few of the dudes are just like best friends already. Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, of course, I'd be probably good friends with a lot of
would have
people.
Happened in the other groups too, probably.
It's kind of like it can't happen. Yeah, it has to happen. So, well, honestly, I mean, the biggest thing that is kind of stuck out to me recently is the impact that you've had on so many people, like we were talking about. And ultimately, what's kind of crazy is that what you do is you instill a sense of confidence in other people. What I've noticed through seeing other people interact with you, and even myself, like even doing this podcast today, there's no need to be like nervous or anxious with Jimmy's events or anything that Jimmy's putting on, because you instill a level of confidence, I guess, in other people that everything is going to be taken care of.
Oh, I love that, man. When I was a kid, the best compliment I can get, and honestly, it's the most masculine trait you can do for your woman, is like, make it so they don't have to think about anything. They get to just show up and be. Like, ask any woman what her dream trip is. But if you just say, hey, have a bag ready to go at 6 o'clock. Here's what you're going to need to have. I'm taking you on the trip that you're never going to forget. She would just be, that to them is going to be better than anything that they have to co-plan with you, because that's a woman being able to just fully go into her feminine, and a guy can just control it. So it's my favorite compliment is like, when I'm around you, I just feel like I can let myself be. Like a lot of the guys that we coach in the group, they, in their business, in their life, they're controlling everything. It's either, they're the guys that have to plan the party. They're the guys that have to plan the business. Like they're the CEO or the head of the house. And they say like one of their favorite things, just come and not have to think about anything. Yeah. And I think that, so that is a compliment that I don't take lightly. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's who you go into war with means everything. If you've ever been part of a sports team and if you've got that guy on your team, we're like, we're going to be fine. We got freaking so-and-so. Our coach is so-and-so. You at least know you're going to be prepared. You at least know you're going to be ready for the game. And so to me, that is about as good as a leader as you can hope for, is just to make sure other people feel confident when they're there with you.
Yeah. And it takes a certain level of confidence in yourself to be able to do that, right? I'm guessing that's the first step, is have an immense amount of confidence in yourself and your abilities to then be able to pass that on to other people.
Yeah. And I mean, the truth is like, I still get nervous. Like I'm speaking tomorrow at an event, and there's going to be 5,000 or 10,000 people there at the Limitless event. And I'm a little nervous. But I think part of being a leader and kind of being somebody that portrays that confidence is being able to recognize, like, yeah, I am nervous and I'm going to be prepared, right? Because when you prep, like the reason I'm not nervous going to the events, and I've been able to curate that in a way where you guys can just show up and be, is because of all the prep that goes into it. And so I think, if you ever seen any of the videos of Tony Robbins prepping for his events, it's crazy. I mean, the guy, oh my gosh, like more than I ever would, but like he's so prepared. So like it's the reason he gets the outcome he does is because of that preparation up front.
Wow. So I guess what is also really surprising is when you prepare as much as you can, but then things change and your back is against the wall. And I know this has happened to you quite a few times in your life, right? And so that's kind of where I want to get to. You're this super confident man now, and that you share that with other people. But I'm sure you weren't always that way per se. And then the biggest thing that I see people having struggles with is when they go through hard times, or they go through devastating things in their life, and how do they get that confidence back? And so I guess from an entrepreneurial standpoint, right? I mean, you started off pretty young. You're doing you're selling meat door to door, right? And anyone who hasn't heard this story, it's an amazing story. You can go to Jimmy Rex's podcast. You've shared it a couple of times on there, and I love every time I listen to it. But eventually, your business partner your business partner stole pretty much all your money.
He did.
Right? Yep. And so that wasn't your fault, right? But at the same time...
Well, and by the way, I'm careful with that because I absolutely have fault in that. I saw that guy lie. I saw that guy be out of integrity, and I chose to partner up with him, right? Like, now, did I think he would do that to me? No, but there is a level of accountability that I'm not going to let that just be passed off. Now, did I ever think he'd steal that money? No, but at the end of the day, looking back, I can blame myself for that too.
Yeah.
So I think it's important not to.
Yeah. So it's not completely blindside, I guess. Right. But he took the money from you, and your back was against the wall. Right. I mean, I don't know how your confidence level was doing in a situation like that, but I guess, how did you find a way out of that space into something where you can help yourself and help other people?
Well, so confidence is pretty simple, man. It comes from keeping promises to ourselves. That's it. That's confidence 101. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in the exterior. It doesn't matter what's the result of my actions are. Did I do what I said I was going to do? And if you do that, you stay confident. So like the real estate market collapsed in 2007, 2008. And I was confident as ever. Like, homes weren't selling. It was brutal. But I knew if I just showed up and did my job every day that I could survive it. And so I was obsessed with what I was doing, the actions I could take. So when you say, like, when something bad happens, like when my partner stole all that money, like, I wasn't down. I wasn't depressed. Like, it kind of put me into, I mean, you can do one of two things when shit hits the fan, right? Yeah. You either fold up and like go cry, I guess. Like, people would always be like, how did you get through this hard time? It's like, I don't know. I just did. What's the other option? To be a loser? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't even resonate with me. Yeah. So it's like, okay, like, backs to the wall, let's go to work. And one of the best gifts you can get in life, I did have a rock bottom moment around that time. I remember I was going to McDonald's, and because I did lose all my money. And what happened was, he was taking salary. I wasn't. So the money, because he had a family, and I was just surviving on my savings. And so I was getting more and more like, down the line, I'm going to get this money. Yeah. And he was also living in one of my rental properties, and he wasn't paying rent. It was part of his pay. And so It was stacking up against me. But, so ultimately I was out of money. I had no money and a lot of debt. I had $120,000 debt when that thing folded. And I remember I had to borrow a couple bucks from my sister to go get some McDonald's one day. I had nothing, dude. Yeah. But here's the thing that's interesting and it's the gift that we all should probably try to give ourselves at some point by going broke. I was at this rock bottom, and honestly, dude, it wasn't that bad. Like it just wasn't that bad. I was like, cool. All right. I got a bunch of lessons. I am at zero. Like, it's kind of this nice feeling where you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything. I didn't have any assets.
This is the one thing that I think you and Ed Milet disagree on a little bit, where I remember in the podcast, he was like, I'll do anything to never be broke again in my life.
He said, though, if you listen to the podcast I did with him, he said, also, it wasn't that bad. I don't want to be back there. Me neither. I don't want to go back there tomorrow. But I know I'd be fine if I did. Would I get the exact same amount of, success and wealth and, the life that I have now? I don't know. Like, maybe not. But I also kind of look at this life as a beautiful mess. Like, it doesn't need to be anything. Right. When you can eliminate the expectation of how your life is supposed to work, because that's where all pain comes from. When we need X and Y to work for Z to be a good place. And so ultimately for me, I look at that time and, I look back and I'm like, man, I was working really hard and I didn't really have any money, but it was fun. It was a grind. It was just like a hustle. It was trying to figure shit out. And by going there, I guess the reason I mention that is because I'm not afraid of that outcome. I'm not afraid to go broke. I thrive in chaos. And so like, I don't know.
I feel like that fear has kind of turned into a superpower a little bit.
Totally. It empowers me to go for it. Yeah. Where most people get stuck is like, you're not afraid of what you're going to get. You're afraid of what you're going to lose, right? People are like so attached to this, like, oh, what if I lose everything? Well, what if? Like, I'm sorry. Like, we live in America in 2024. You're not going to go hungry and you're going to have a place to sleep. You just are. Those two things are probably pretty set. You got to make a series of horrible choices to end up on the streets. Yeah. And by the way, that could probably be its own fun adventure, It's just camping in the middle of the city. Like,
I don't know if everyone has such an opportunistic view as you do.
But it's all just like how we choose to look at the world, right? Like, dude, I was in Mozambique 2 weeks ago, okay? It's in Africa. It's the sixth poorest country in the world. I didn't know this when I was walking around at night. I was walking around for about 3 hours. Anytime I go to one of these foreign countries, I like to just go for a walk, see the people, talk to them, see what the city's like. And I'm walking around this place. And the next day, it was fine, whatever. The next day, I Googled just for fun to see what the average GDP or average income per person is for a year. It's $540 a year. Okay, it's the sixth poorest country for the entire year. The watch that was on my wrist, this watch, was about 14 years worth of the average income of a person in Mozambique. I didn't realize that as I was walking around. Probably pretty stupid at the end of the day. But my point is like, those people, like, I think this is what gives me this perspective, though, is they're not any less happy than the people that I meet every day here in Utah. They're not. They're absolutely, you should have seen them. They're having a blast. They don't know any, they're building a fire in the street and having a blast. They're freaking dude. Like, they're hanging out with their families. They don't have this stress of the world. Like, and so when you kind of get more perspectives and you kind of start to see all this, I think it just opens you up to like, you know what? Like, there's no right way to do life. There's no guarantees in this world. It's like pick a lane and enjoy it. And, when we're not attached to our life needing to be anything, again, it just really frees you up to go for it in different ways. I mean, I would have never made the switch out of real estate that I did to do We Are the They if I was worried about the financial piece of it. I wouldn't have been able to. I was printing money in real estate and it never been easier.
That's the crazy thing is that, and I think that's the most respectable thing that me and a lot of the guys have is like, I don't know, like you stopped at the height of your game. It's kind of like, it's not like, oh, Jimmy was a great real estate agent and then he kind of faded out and then now he's doing this. It's like you literally, I think just 2 years or a year before you started We Are the They, you sold the most valuable property in Utah.
I sold the most expensive home in Utah. I was the number one agent by gross commission that year. And my last full year, I sold 497 homes, by far the most I'd ever had. Like, it was like, honestly, it just was, I was kind of bored with it. I was like, but that's the point is I would have never given that up. And maybe if I had more, like if I had a family, I might have done it different. I think it's part of the gift of my life though, right? It's like, for some people might look at my life and be like, damn, that dude 42 and still single. And I look at it and it's like, yeah, I haven't had my kids yet. I haven't had a family yet. But guess what? All these other things I get to do that other people haven't done. And everything has a trade-off. Like there's days I'm sad about that. There's days where you get lonely, but there's also so many experiences that most people would never in a million years get to have. I would never have been able to do We Are the They, all these other things. And so everything's a trade-off. And again, and that's why I'm like, cool, like let's just pick a lane. And I think the key to this whole thing, this whole journey is whatever lane you're in, to love that lane, to love it whatever you're at. Yeah.
And that's one thing that we talked about when I was kind of deciding if I was going to stay in the career I was or if I was going to transition. You said, And I remember this very vividly. You said the mistake that most people make is that they think that they have to ditch the thing that they're good at or that they're currently doing in order to rebrand themselves as someone completely new. It's like, why don't you use the talents and skills that you currently have and tweak things and add to it to become something even better?
Yeah, I mean, even when I came up with the idea of Weird the Day, it took me about 2 years, and then I kind of set it up for about 6 months. I was selling full time during all that.
Yeah.
And then even when I launched Weird the Day, I kept doing real estate for about another 6 months because I had to make sure it was going to work, like enough to pay the bills, at least, before I could just completely turn it over. And so that's why. So it's like, yeah, I mean, look, we have 168 hours in a week, and people are like, I don't have time for that. Well, no, you just haven't made it a priority, because you start thinking about it and breaking it down. Okay, let's say you work 40 hours a week. Yeah. You sleep another 50. Okay, that's a lot of sleep. You're getting 7 hours a night. You're good.
Yeah.
Sunday, you get an extra hour. So there's 90 hours gone. You still have 78 hours. So let's say you spend 25 with your family. You still have 53 hours. Okay, well, let's say you're eating for 6 of those. You're bathing for another 4, whatever. I mean, you start doing the math. There's a lot of time there. But the average person spending 8 hours a day on their cell phone one way or another, and then 3 hours a day on TikTok. Well, yeah, all of a sudden you spend 9 hours a week watching football, and people don't think they do, but you watch 2.5 games. You spent 10 hours watching football.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out where your priorities lie or what you're doing. But I always tell people, find the next thing while you're in a good spot. You want to come from a place of strength. That was the key to me making the transition into Weird the Day. And I think why we had so much success so early was because I wasn't making decisions from a desperate place. I wasn't making decisions needing it to work to make money.
Yeah.
I was making the decision based on what is the best thing for the group. Right now, I've had to 2.5 years later, I'm working on making it more profitable now because I overspent on a lot of things, but it didn't matter. I didn't need to worry about it. Right now, I'm kind of like, okay, now I do, to make this sustainable, bring in some extra executives and people to go to the next level.
From what I could tell, what you're saying is it's not so that way you can, have more money. It's so that way the organization can continue to grow.
Yeah, and make sure that it just can become what it's supposed to, right? Like, you have to bring in other people, and talent is expensive. And, if you want to grow your platform, it costs money and all these things. And so ultimately, I want to create a better and better product. I want to serve more and more people. And so, it's more expensive. So now you start worrying about some of those things. But early on, I didn't give 2 shits about how much money it was bringing in. I was bringing in enough. We were making money. And so it was like, cool, we're profitable first year, but I knew it wasn't going to replace my real estate income, but I also knew we could create an experience that was going to blow people's minds.
Yeah. Because being an entrepreneur is literally being a problem solver. Some people out there, like Simon Sinek, he thinks that if you're a small business owner, you're not necessarily an entrepreneur. You can be even a larger business owner and not be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who solves problems. Kind of an interesting take on that from him. But I guess, do you think that's the biggest problem, is that so many guys try to start companies and businesses from a place of just trying to make money?
It's everybody wants to have a career that they enjoy. They want to make the most money possible. That's the holy grail, right? Those are the 2 things. So, okay, well, everything has a trade-off, right? So to do what you want, you become an entrepreneur, but most people don't really know how to run a business or make money doing it. So you end up becoming basically this very low-paying job for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I firmly believe 85-90% of the people that are entrepreneurs probably shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Dan Fleischman did a video the other day. He said the quickest way to become a millionaire is become somebody who's crazy motivated with a good idea. Become their number one. Become the person, their right hand. Wow. And you'll absolutely hit your wagon to one of them. Because there's a craziness that's involved with an entrepreneur, dude. You have to deal with stuff you'd never imagined, dude. And it's just, the things I get called where I'm like, hey, $9,000 for this or $4,000 for this. And you're like, what the hell are we talking about?
Where's this even coming from?
Yes, but it's real, And so you're like, okay.
So, when you started the Weird the Day as kind of like an entrepreneurial venture, so to speak, was that more or less time and effort than being a real estate agent?
Oh, I worked hard on both of them. When I first was a realtor, probably my first 7 or 8 years as a realtor, I worked the hardest. I was
grinding.
Yeah, it was guns a-blazing, And then I kind of took my foot off the pedal the last 5 years, 6 years I was doing it. But it's still working, 50 hours a week. It was still a very full-time job. But We Are the They, I mean, it just never ends because, you know, between content creation, events that I'm throwing. See, the one thing about We Are the They is I work about 30 weekends a year. Well, you don't think about that, right? Yeah. So I'm working Saturdays and Friday nights, Sundays, where I was never working those hours in real estate. I never worked a Saturday or Sunday in my whole career.
Yeah.
Like, and I very rarely would work at night. And so with We Are the They, like I do all my stuff during the day. I'm making content, doing this. I just spoke at an event. Now I'm doing a podcast with you. I got another one right afterwards. And I'm just going to be running around all day. I have an event tonight. That's a networking event. That's all part of it. I won't get done tonight working till 10 p.m. Yeah. And then tomorrow we have the speaking event. It's an all day Saturday event. Like, last week I was doing a ludus, or I was in Africa for 2 weeks with the guys. And so you're just always like, it's fun though. So it's like, it's work, but it's also fun. So I'm probably working more hours if you were to break it down than ever, but they don't feel like work.
Yeah. I mean, how much of your life now, I mean, people look at like job and lifestyle and they think about the balance between it. Like, it sounds like this group and what you've done is more of your lifestyle now. As opposed to a job.
I'm pretty good at building a life that fits what I like doing anyway. Yeah. I mean, like, let's be real. Like, my job is like the coolest thing ever.
Well, you went to South Africa for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Tough job, man.
But so you know, the parts that people don't see is all the behind the scenes. It's honestly the individual coaching. I had a pretty emotional call with a guy 2 days ago. His cancer came back. One of the guys I coach. You know, you deal with a guy I went on a walk with yesterday. He just lost his job. And so it's the emotional toll of this is much more than real estate, right? Like real estate, it's like there was things that would happen, like your deal falls apart, but you're going to buy another one. It's not the end of the world. It wasn't as emotional. Like, you know, dude just found out his wife stepped out. That's a pretty big deal. Or, you know, you might have a couple months to live because of your health. Like, you just deal with it. When I'm coaching 300-400 guys at a time, you're just constantly dealing with big things.
So I've got to ask, I mean, from a lot of people like in the sales space, you know, they have like recruits, or they have people that are, or even in the entrepreneur space, you have employees, right? What you're doing is completely different. You're building connections with people on a very real space. And then you're also there for them emotionally outside of, you know, just helping them progress as men. You're also there for them like emotionally if you need it in a way. There's not many people that can take on that kind of a responsibility and who can also show up as much as you show up time after time after time again and be emotionally available without being completely drained. And so what do you think of like some of the things that help you do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, one, I am really good at taking care of myself, giving myself time. So I get my 7 hours of sleep every night. Yeah. I wake up, I go for a walk almost every single day. You know, I read, I meditate. I have a couple coaches that I lean on, and then I'm good at like midday. I'll take a break to go to the gym every day. And I know my limits. And so that's pretty good. But I also think I'm uniquely wired where I do care deeply, but I have a unique ability where I don't take stuff on very heavily.
Really?
Yeah. Because I mean, that's where a lot of people that get into social work get in trouble. They're so altruistic. They want so bad to change the world, but they take everything on. So they get burned out quick and then they become miserable. Right. And I had about 6 months within the last year where I didn't even realize how much I think it was wearing me down. And honestly, I had to make a couple changes in what I was doing. I changed my diet up again. I quit drinking, and I wasn't drinking a lot, but I, drank a day on average. Yeah. And I just stopped. I just was feeling a little bit more drowsy and foggy and stuff. And so I just started doing stuff a little bit different that's been helping quite a bit. But you do have to take care of yourself. Yeah. Physically, emotionally. And I have a really good support group of friends that I lean on. And the same thing I teach all you guys. I'll call my friends when I'm feeling down. I had a conversation a week and a half ago with one of them, and I was just telling them a few of the things I'm dealing with, and and just I didn't need answers. I just was here is what I'm dealing with. Like,
Well, I mean, you say this before that vulnerability is a superpower. And I don't think people understand how that can apply. I mean, that obviously works in, the health space and everything like that. But how can vulnerability be a superpower in like a business space?
It's an interesting word, and it is a superpower, and it's the greatest when done correctly. There's a couple things though that you see. There's a lot of false vulnerability, like where people will be like, like 3 years ago, I was in the worst place. I almost killed myself. And it's like, that's not actually being vulnerable. You're like telling the hero story, right?
Oh, yeah, I was down
vulnerability is like, dude, I'm having a shit day. Like, this is going on right now. And you know what? I mean, I'm going to be fine. But it's like, it's you feel the difference. It's like true vulnerability is like what's going on right now. Like, what are you going through?
It's in the present. It's what we're going through right now.
It's not like, I had a gun to my head and I was like, okay, cool. Like, but that's not vulnerable. It's like, it's a good story, but like, but also you want to be careful who you're overly vulnerable with, right? I mean, if I'd been vulnerable to my friends in my 20s, they probably would have used it against me, you know, and they would have made fun of me.
None of you were in a space where you could,
there was, then my whole point of that is the container has to be safe. Okay. So like my number one job with you guys is to create a container safe enough for you to be vulnerable. Right. And so a good workplace has that. Good sports teams have that. It's very rare though. Yeah. But if you have that, then the vulnerability is the superpower. If not, then you're better off not saying anything, you know, it's going to get used against you. But like, so my only job with you guys, and that's why I set that container so tight. I go through very specifically how this is, and then I personally get vulnerable about something that helps you guys connect and go, oh, we can trust this guy. Like, I don't have to have my shit all put together. It'll be okay. Like, he's still working on his stuff, you know? And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is safe. Then you get to be vulnerable. And so my number one job with you guys is creating that container. It's why I'm obsessive about people not being on their phones if someone else is speaking or talking in the background, or it's because all those things matter to create that container where people know that they're going to be heard and seen.
And how hard must that be doing that with friends? Because I mean, you brought up your friends, and I think that's actually one of the main reasons that attracted me to joining We Are the They and just trying to, you know, better connect with you was I saw the group of people that you were with, that you associate with, that you hang out with, and your friends. And obviously you don't get those friends by being superficial. I feel like way too many people nowadays, they think, oh, if I'm an entrepreneur or if I like start a business, then I'll get all these amazing high level friends. But that's not the prerequisite to getting high level friends or high quality friends. I mean, what do you think are the best prerequisites to getting high quality friends and maintaining?
Well, we're going to attract people that are on our frequency. And so number one is getting your own, you know, you don't get friends hoping they're going to fix you. Same thing as a relationship, right? Like, you know, Jim Rohn says this best. He says, I'll be my best for you and you be your best for me. Whether that's friends or a relationship, I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, right? But you want to find friends that, you know, you can trust, that are honest. And I think the mistake we make is we like people, we like hanging out with them. And so we'll like give them more leeway. But you know, where I've gotten in trouble with friends in the past is where I saw behaviors that were less than good and I allowed them. And and eventually that person burns you. You know, recently, I mean, I have a friend just the other day, is one of my closest friends, my buddy Travis. And I sent him a text and I made a comment about something. And he just threw it in my face so hard. And he just gave me a better perspective. And he was so right. And I just laughed. I was just like, touche, bro. Dang, and I wanted him to validate what I said and he just didn't. But he gave me a different perspective. I was like, damn, that's so good. I'm such an asshole. And
he didn't lose you as a friend.
No, we didn't even have to talk about it again. The next time we talked, it didn't even come up. It was just like,
but you gained more. I mean, you got value from that.
And I'm the same thing for him, right? Like the other day, I thought he said something that was off, and I called him out on that at breakfast, you know. And it was like, you don't want people that just tell you what you want to hear.
Well, you said this before too, and I love it. You said, most people get it backwards, where they'll talk shit to people behind your back, but then to your face, they'll give you praise and glory. And then it should be the exact opposite.
You want the exact opposite. Yeah. Correct.
When you're not around, you want to be praising and you want to be giving them all the props and love. And then when you're with your friend, you want to
I was in a room the other day and some people were talking about somebody and they asked me my opinion. I said, honestly, I freaking love that person. I love them. And I left them dead in their track because they were all talking shit. And they were all just like, but I do. I love that person. I was like, that
takes some courage to do that.
It doesn't once you have confidence in yourself. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, what are they going to not like me either? They're going to talk shit about me too, you know?
All right, bring it on, man.
I don't care. But and it taught them a lesson in the moment. I was just like, oh, I actually love that person.
Yeah. Well, I love how you said it doesn't when you have confidence in yourself. And I feel like a lot of our conversation today has gone back to the confidence aspect of it. I feel like in order to start a business or make a big move in your life, there's got to be confidence. So what would you say to somebody who wants to make a big change in their life? They want to pivot or they want to do something new and maybe they lack the confidence for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing would be is like to trust yourself. Like you have to know yourself though. Do you keep promises to yourself and start doing that? If you don't do it, I wouldn't start a business if you have a hard time waking up on time. Right. I wouldn't start a business if, it's hard for you not to get drunk on the weekends. Like you probably don't have what it takes yet, Are you disciplined with your money? Do you even know where it goes? Are you disciplined with your time? Do you say yes when you don't want to? Like all those kinds of things. But like for me, confidence just, again, comes from going, I just do what I say I'm going to do. And if I don't, I know why and I own it and then I do better. And it's like, okay, I can trust myself. Like I can trust myself in my decisions. And I think honestly too, like it's getting right with God. I think that there's, I put, it's a 10-year journey I put into my relationship with God, but I think he really enjoys the person that I am. I think that he finds humor in my screw ups. And I think that he's just like, this freaking guy, Jimmy. Yeah. And so it gives me confidence when I wake up every day. My prayer is, God, lead me to the people that need me. And so every day that I'm going, if I have a gut feeling or if I make a choice, I'll just assume God's behind it. And it usually works out that way because I do walk with a confidence. I think confidence is knowing that God is kind of guiding your path.
He's guiding your path. Yeah. And so when you have that promise to yourself that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. I mean, it sounds like you're saying even in like the smallest ways too, like making your bed. And if you say you're going to do something, you actually do it.
Yeah. And it's not like, like Alex Hormozi says this so well. It's because like when I was building my company, when I was really grinding and making the most money and all that, I didn't care about making my bed. I never heard of a cold plunge. I got to the gym when I could. I started my day with a rock star and a maple bar. Like it wasn't like I had these crazy routines. It's so funny. There's like a page online that makes fun of the entrepreneur pages. And there's one that's like, so you're telling me if you don't do all these things in the morning, you can't function. You're that weak, huh? And it's like, it's kind of accurate. It's like, I don't think you need to be this like rigid person, but like ultimately like, look, do you know the most important thing in your life? Do you know what moves the needle? And do you do that every day? Yeah. And that's kind of like, so people ask me all the time, what's your morning routine? And it's like, well, I don't even want to say it because it's not what got me here. And I'm not that strict on it. I have certain things I try to do every day. Yeah. If I don't hit it, I don't. Like yesterday, I'll give you an example. Dude, I had the busiest day. I did 4 podcasts. I had an event I had to attend. I had a coaching call. And I had like a really important meeting with one of the guys I coach. It was just my whole day from 7:45 in the morning. And I didn't get done till 9:30 at night. I did not hit the gym. My gym clothes sat in my car the whole day.
You had them.
I intended to go. Well, yeah, because I was planning on going. Not in case. I was planning on going. Oh, okay. Never had a window and didn't open up.
Couldn't do it.
And so I didn't beat myself up. I went home and I went to bed. Like, hit it tomorrow. Like, I don't care. Like, I didn't get to the gym today. You know? And
you can bank on what you did accomplish.
Of course. Yeah. And so it's like, it's just, again, it's like giving yourself that flexibility. Like, I don't need X and Y to happen in a day to make it a successful day. Like I had a great day yesterday. I loved yesterday. And didn't get to the gym like I planned,
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah. Well, I feel like so many guys, they see where you're at now and they want it and they emulate it and they don't understand the hustle that it takes to get there. And then there's some guys who are hustling right now and they don't realize that it takes a different kind of work ethic or a different kind of person to start their own business or to get to a different point. Do you feel like it's still mandatory for guys to put in kind of like their dues, like make sure that their dues are paid, put in like hustle in something? Or do you think that it's okay for people just to aspire to become TikTok stars and Instagram influencers?
Well, I think you can aspire to whatever you want. I don't think that there's a right way to do things. So you have to come back to that again. But I mean, what do you want? Like if you want to be famous on TikTok, well, why? Like it's going to be very unfulfilling if you get there and you don't really, and it's really hard to do. And so I do think that there's like these principles of the universe that like, if you want to be great at something, grind at it for 10 years and you'll be good at it. Yeah. Period. You want to be great at it? Do it for 20 years. You'll probably be great at it. Yeah. If you don't put that work in, it's very difficult to just be great. It just is. It's very hard. We live in a world where you can see certain people pop on the internet very fast. Yeah. Like TikTok stars or YouTube stars. Yeah. And most of them didn't pop as quick as it looks like. Right. And all the guys that I'm speaking on this stage where you're sitting right now. Jim Quick's going to be sitting there later today on my podcast. All right. The guy wrote the #1 book in the country last year for nonfiction, Limitless. Nobody saw the 25 years that Jim Quick put in being an expert in brain and memory and all those different things to become what he is now, right? There's a reason you don't see many guys in their 30s that are actually really good public speakers, or guys in their 20s that are really good coaches. There's a lot of people trying now because they see me doing it or they see somebody else doing it, but it's really hard. You have to have life experience. It's really hard to teach somebody something you haven't gone through. And so I do think there's this false sense of like people wanting to go for it before they're ready, and cool, go for it, fall on your face or don't, like have massive success. I never blame people for taking action. I do think that you're better served by putting in the work up front, but you know what? If somebody wants to be a coaching speaker, author at 25 and they put in the grind doing that, they'll probably get there quicker than somebody that starts at 40, you know? Right. And so I don't know if you've ever heard, there's this project that I'm going to screw this up. It's a story that I heard online recently, but basically the guy divided the class into 2 parts. And the one part they said, you have to write, it was like, they had to like draw, it was like an art class. They had to draw the perfect picture, but they only could add 1 chance at it, but make it perfect. And the other one, they said, I need you to draw this picture every day for 30 days. And by the 30th day, whatever you have, you know, and the people that were doing it every day and screwing it up ended up with a much better product than the person that was trying to get it right that first time. And so,
exactly.
Yes, I do think that there's something to the grind. I think there's something to the hustle, but also, you know what, like the younger generation, dude, they saw their parents do that and be miserable. They saw them lose their savings. They saw their crypto crash. They saw the housing market, you know, the home down the streets, $800,000 now, they're never going to have a house, you know? So like, I don't blame them for wanting to shortcut things. And we live in a world where whatever they want, they can get it pretty quick. I mean, you want a date, jump on Tinder. You want any of 50 meals, dude, I could have us lunch, but by the time this podcast is over, if I got on my phone for 2 minutes, you know? So it's just, we live in a world where everything happens really fast. And so naturally, of course, they're going to want that. They don't even know a world that's not that. Yeah. Right? I mean, I remember I had to sit on the curb for 2 hours because my mom forgot to pick me up from football practice. Like, you come up with some creativity doing that, you know? Like, you learn to be bored and come up with some of your own ideas. So
that's right.
You know, I feel bad for the younger generation in some ways because I do think that there's just so much noise. It's very difficult, and they want to look like, I'd be doing the same thing if I was 25. I'm sure of it. I'd be trying to be famous. I'd probably be canceled from YouTube by now.
Already, I think those are the 2 things, and we can kind of wrap up with this, but the 2 things that you mentioned is like, be creative, have confidence, and like act, but also what is your why behind it, right? Like, why do you want to become famous? Is it so that way you can have a Lamborghini, or is it so that way you can help people because you think that you have a message that you can share? Right. Yeah. And so I feel like as long as people have a really good reason for doing what they're doing, and then that'll probably help them get the confidence to achieve it anyways. Right.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, what other, you have Limitless that coming up this weekend. And then I think you just opened up the men's group again.
Yeah. So group number 5, May 1. And so if you're listening to this and this is calling to you, come apply. We'd love to have you. We're going to fill it up 50 guys in each group. So as soon as we fill it to 50, it'll be full. But would love to have anybody listen to this come
join us. And it fills up fast.
Like, we've sold it out in under a couple of days every time.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, the best thing I could just say for that too is, you know, I was kind of going back and forth on joining that first one. I was moving to Texas. I moved to Texas, and I saw you do the first one. I saw you do the second one. And I saw you start doing the trips to Spain and the shark diving. And I'm just like, the FOMO was so real. I was like, I have got to get in that. And then the third group was a little bit different because you did it with that company. So I was just kind of waiting. And then finally, I think either you, actually, maybe Dakota, like hit me up like, hey, we're doing group 4. And I was just like, yep, let's do it. And so that was, it's honestly been one of the best decisions I've made recently. That was back in September of last year. Yeah. And since then, I mean, we've done 2 Ludises, right? We've done 2 awesome kind of trips where I've met more people and had better conversations than I ever have. My relationship with my wife has gotten so much better because I learned what it means to be in integrity. And so and I will say this, and you know this, don't sign up if you don't think it's going to be work.
Yeah, it's not. It's work, man.
It's not all fun, guys. No. It's a lot of work, and if you
want to level up, that requires work. You know. And
I think that's a big misconception too, is that people think they can level up just by like doing outward actions, and not focusing.
We'll do
inward.
everything we can that doesn't actually move the needle, but feels good to us.
Yeah.
So like with We Are the They, we do the real shit, you know?
Yeah, we get deep. And I mean, that's the biggest thing. And so the friendships and relationships that have come from it are just absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait we have another year and a half left in this program. And so definitely recommend it. Do you have anything else kind of coming up that you...
That's the main thing we're working on right now, man. Yeah, we,
awesome.
you know, part of being in the group, we're doing Summerfest in July, and we're doing a demolition derby and all sorts of fun stuff. We're gonna have a golf tournament for charity, and
yeah, you know, I'm gonna be there for that. Well, you can find Jimmy on Mr. Jimmy Rex on Instagram.
It's the best place.
And thanks so much for coming on.
Dude, thanks. Had a blast.
Appreciate it. Awesome.